Okay. Now I think I have the right microphone. Yeah, yeah. Now it's happening. I think you will be able to hear me much better now, right? Because now at least I can see in my live streaming software that some things are happening. So I hope it works well. Perfect. Yay! It feels super weird streaming from the computer like this, but I hope it will work and that I will be able to do some cool stuff later on with split screens and stuff like that. But we will see what will be happening here. Good day. Hey, Haley. Nice to see you guys checking in. Yay! I can be heard. I was thinking, I have, see if I can show it a little bit. Ignore my peer, but I do actually have a good microphone. So that's why I was thinking to actually try out this kind of setting to see if you can hear me a little bit better this way. I used to do podcasts. I have mentioned it before, so that's why I have actually a really good real podcast microphone and stuff like that. But if you hear some kind of buzzing noise in the background, it's my 3D printer working, and I think it's about halfway done. So it will probably sound a little less from that later on. Hopefully. We'll see. So, like I said, today I am going to talk about my own background, my own story, and maybe a little bit of a trigger warning on that. But after all, it is a craft and crime kind of segment, so hopefully everyone understands that the crime part of it will have mature topics in it. But I still will mention it a bit. And just also a heads up when I will be about the things I will be talking about, or rather how I will be talking about it. I know it will probably be maybe worse for people hearing it than it is for me talking about it. At least that's my experience from before. And the main reason for it is that part of my coping mechanisms have been for a very long time to be able to, keep my feelings to myself a lot. And I have been working in therapy also a lot to be able to let go of my feelings or to show my feelings, but I still have this ability to hide them when I want to, so to say. So for me, talking about this stuff isn't that hard anymore. It's maybe the easiest way to say it. But I know, like I said, from experience, that it can be quite hard to listen to for others. And I try to be mindful of that. And I won't go into every kind of gory detail and stuff like that, but keeping it a little bit on the surface. But still get the relevant parts in there, so to say. So we will see. And yeah, for me to talk about this, it's partly because it does help. It's kind of a part for me of dealing with it all, so to speak. Um, and it's also part in, feeling less lonely, and hopefully also other can take part of my story and they will feel less lonely. And that's also why I do have this true crime interest that I have, because it just makes me feel less lonely to know that I'm not alone in these kind of experiences. Even though, of course, not everyone has the exact same experience or feel the exact same way about them and so on, it still makes the isolation lessen. So, yeah. But the hardest part is to just know where to start it all, actually. But I think I will try to take this a little bit in the right order, start from the beginning and end by the end. I think that will work the best, maybe also for you to follow along the easiest. But before I start, if you can, please let me know in the chat if you are doing any kind of crafts today while listening in, or if you're, I don't know, cleaning the house, working, something like that. Hey, Sarah. I will be crocheting a little bit to and fro. I think you will notice quite fast that I am a hand talker. I like to have my hands in the conversation. So I have a tendency to not be able to craft for too much while I'm talking also, because I need to get my hands in. Yeah. Talking about little guys, my youngest, he accidentally got waken up when I had to go to the toilet at 11 p.m. last night. And that resulted in him not going back to sleep until like 2 a.m. It was, yeah. I didn't get the best nights of sleep, let's just say. So, kind of good luck for me that I had already decided on this topic for today, so I didn't have to keep any kind of research in my head or getting it written down and stuff like that. Because I don't know if my brain would work good enough for that today, actually. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Haley. Happy Easter to anyone who celebrates. We are really bad at celebrating any kind of holiday in my household, but my kids has their Easter eggs, and my husband got an Easter egg, and yeah, we had a little bit of a celebration, at least, and that's good enough, I guess. Okay. Well, I'm going to start then with, like I said, with my story. And trying, like I said, to take it a bit on surface level to not make it too overwhelming to listen to. But if you have any questions or anything that you want me to explain a little bit more about or something like that, just write in the chat and I will do my best to answer. And don't feel afraid to ask anything at all. I will try to answer whatever I feel that I can answer. But I was born. Okay, even this part is is not that easy to say, and you will understand why later on in this. But let's put it like this: according to my passport and my social security number in Sweden, I was born 25th of July 1996, making me turning 40 in July this year. Okay. And I came to Sweden in 1988 as an adoptee. So I was adopted by my parents who lived in the northern Sweden, or kind of middle northern, southern northern middle, kind of middle of Sweden lengthwise. Sweden is a very long but still kind of tiny country. Yeah, so I got adopted to them, and this small town of Sweden is named Härnösand, which directly translated into English is Here's Duck. And that was, I think, one of the few funny puns the city had to use for all kind of commercial for visitors and stuff like that. So yeah. So like I say, according to my passport, I was just a little bit over 2 years old when I got adopted to my parents. My parents, or my adoptive parents, they breed German Shepherds. They don't do it anymore because they are too old, but most of my, or all of my childhood and actually most of my life until like 5 years ago or something like that, they were breeding German Shepherds. We also had one Doberman when I came to Sweden, and up until I was, I think like 8 years old or something like that when he died. So yeah, and I was the only child because my parents were a little bit older when they decided to adopt me. So they were both past 40 when they got me. And because of the rules around adoption, they were not allowed to adopt again because of their age. And I learned later in life that my father didn't even want to have kids at all. But if he was forced into having kids, adoption was the only thing he could accept. So my parents never tried to have any biological kids. So I was the only child growing up. And we lived in like a teeny tiny village outside of Härnösand. In the, like right out in the forest. Very few neighbors, and perfect place when you have dogs, I guess. So because of that, my parents was quite well known in the community. Something that was to be very bad for me in the end, but I will get to that part. So yeah, like I said, I have 5 cousins, adoptive cousins. three that's older and 2 younger. And they grew up in a nearby town called Sundsvall, and it's about 45 to an hour to drive between Härnösand and Sundsvall. So we were quite close by, but I was still a little bit of the odd one out, even with my cousins, because they were living so close to each other in the same town, and I was an hour away. But still, we were really close, all of us cousins, and kind of still are, even though I am, again, the odd one out, but this time a little bit by my own accord, because I moved away and ended up very far away from them, while most of my cousins are still living quite close to each other. So, yeah. I was in kind of, I would say, the Swedish version of kindergarten. And I started because of how my parents were and their view on working and having a career and stuff like that. The recommendation, even when I got adopted, was to be home with the adoptive child for quite some time. And they chose to not be home with me for so long, because they thought I was too old and could understand enough to not have to be with them at home for a long time, like a year or more. So, like I said, I was like 2 when I came to Sweden. I then was a time with a daycare mom. So that's like one person that have kids in their own home. And then I went to one kindergarten for a while and got to change that to another kindergarten, because the one I was going to were in the city. And the one I later changed to was like out in the village. And my parents was a little bit annoyed of the fact that I was so tired in the evening when they got me from kindergarten. That I fell asleep in the car most of the days on the way home. And then it wasn't as easy to get me to bed as they wanted in the evening. So they changed kindergarten for me to this new one that was just opening when I started there. And then the way the school was back then and kind of is now, I started in a 6 years kind of preschool grade. And that was only for a year. And then after that year, I started my first like real school year in the school very close to where we lived when I was 7, or at least thought I was 7. So yeah. And I don't know if it was the times more general or just the area in which I grew up, but there was a lot of bullying going on, and a lot of that bullying was based on skin color. So there were a lot of not only kids but also teachers that took part in bullying me growing up. But not only me, there were also another girl in the class who was adopted from India that got a lot of heat. Her brother got away a little bit easier because he excelled as being a football player. So much that he, when we got into what we call high school, but I'm not sure what the English is, or American kind of it is, but like 7th, 8th grade, when he was in 9th grade, and he was older than me, so I was like, I think in like 7th grade. He got to spend 2 weeks in Spain or Italy. I can't remember which football team Svennis was coaching by the time. And Svennis was this super famous football coach back in this day and age. So he was like super cool, and that helped him avoid some of the bullying. But we had in school, junior high school, thank you. But we had like active neo-Nazis in school and stuff like that. So that kind of racism was around like a lot, and the teachers were really, really struggling in how to act upon it. Or secondary school, yeah, okay. Like the Swedish school system right now, it's going to change soon, but it hasn't yet. So right now, and it was the same when I went to school, is that you have what's called like preschool class or 6 years, 6-year-olds class. That's like mandatory 1 year, but it's not counted as a real school year, but everyone has to do it. And then you start 1st grade when you're 7, and then everyone has to go to school for 9 years. So grade 8 to 9, they are mandatory, and they are mandatory in that way that if you are away too much, the social services are allowed to take the kid away from the parents, or they can be mandatory police escorts to school, stuff like that. And you are only allowed to homeschool in Sweden under very extra kind of cases. So you can't apply to homeschool just because you feel like you could do a good job in homeschooling. It has to be stuff like it's the only way to give the kid any kind of education at all, or for kids that have cancer and stuff like that, they can be homeschooled because school is not a suitable environment. But other than that, it's mandatory school for 9 years. And then after 9th grade, you have most of kids in Sweden go 3 years in, well, high school. So, but those 3 years you don't actually have to do, but the way society works, if you don't go to high school and get the grades for those 3 years, you will more or less not be able to get any kind of job, or you can't go to any higher education and stuff like that. And then after those 3 years of high school, you can go to community college, ordinary college, or university if you want to. And all schooling is free for people living in Sweden. So even university and stuff like that. So if my kids would want to go to college or university and anything after they are finished with high school, I don't have to pay for them to do that. They don't have to pay for them to do that. They will also get money from the state to cover at least some of the cost for rent if they want to live in an own apartment, and they will be able to pay for school books and stuff like that, because the only thing you really have to pay for at university and college is your own books. Kind of. If you're fast enough, a lot of every book at the university and at the colleges and stuff like that, they also have at the local library. So you can go there and study if you want to. So yeah. Also you can request homeschooling, but it's preferred for them to go to school physically. Yeah, in Sweden you can ask for homeschooling if you have a child with if you have a child that has, I don't like to call it high functional autism, but that's the term for it legally here in Sweden. If you have a kid that has high function autism, which means that the kid is not deemed to be as a severe in his autism and in his or her autism that she or he needs to go to a special school, but it's obvious that he or she won't be able to go to an ordinary school, then you might be able to go to homeschool. But if possible, and they can arrange some kind of special class at an ordinary school, they will do that. So my oldest, for example, that has autism and ADHD, he went to an ordinary school in a special class. So it was a class where they had 2 ordinary teachers and then 3 teacher assistants to help out with the children, and they had a maximum of 10 students in the class. So yeah. So if all the kids were there at the same time in the special class, it was a maximum of 2 students per grown-up teacher, so to say. Just to help it work out. So yeah. But if the autism is deemed severe enough, they can be allotted to go to a special needs school for kids with more severe autism, with other kinds of handicaps, to make it not the best choice to have them go to the ordinary schools. So that's the way it works here. But when I was in school, we didn't really have those special classes yet that my child could go to. So it was more, they called it OBS class, that they took anyone that was seen as a troubled child with a lot of problems, and they took all of those kids and put like in their own class to get them away from the more normal kids. So we had, in my first 6 years of school, we had 1 kid that was moved. Yeah. It was a season for 6. Yeah. So sounds like the same. Yeah. My child loved it. It worked very, very well. He broke down more or less every day of school before they were able to move him to this special class. Yeah. And in that class they worked a lot with positive reinforcements and really helping the kids to succeed, to not feel like they weren't able to do anything right, because they often came from the feeling of always getting things wrong, as a lot of kids with autism and ADHD that's been in normal classes might feel. So yeah. So my first 6 years in school, I was in the same school in that little village of Allensbro. And like I said, there was a lot of bullying, but the bullying continued because when we moved school to in 7th grade, I moved from Allensbro and we moved into the city to a school where they took a lot of kids from those different villages and put into a city school, so to say. And there we were mixed up a little bit, but there was still, I think, like maybe 1/3 of the class I got with in this junior high school or 7th grade was people I have gone to within the same class back in 6th grade. And I remember that my absolute best friend that I had before, one of the few friends I had, she was put in another class because the teacher had decided that she didn't like my influence on my friend, even though I actually didn't have any kind of bad influence on her, according to her parents, and not me or my own parents, but her parents. But the teacher wouldn't budge, and in the end, the decision was to separate us. But I did end up in the same class as one of the worst bullies I had, and he, of course, took the bullying with him and me into the next school. So yeah, fun times. And when we came to like 7th, 8th grade, the bullying also got more severe. Like when we were younger kids, most of the bullying was words and, saying ugly things behind the back of someone, etc. But when we came up in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, it all also turned quite violent. So I had a lot of fear in school because it could come from like nowhere, walking down the aisle, like a corridor in school, and suddenly someone sneaked up behind and hit me in the head or in the back and stuff like that. But the thing was that it wasn't much safer at home for me. So I wasn't safe in school, I wasn't safe outside of school, or like at home. And most of the things I did on my free time was still arranged by my parents because they didn't like to not have control over me. And from a very young age, I think I was around 4, I started to also get sexually abused by a son to one of my parents' close friends. And this guy was, I think, 7 years older than me. So he was like 13 when it started. He was also very young, even though I was like teeny tiny young. And a lot of my time outside of home, but also outside of school, was in places where this guy would also be, so to say. And he would abuse me, like I said, both sexually and also mentally and sometimes physically. And my parents was so occupied by the dogs and their things, so they never noticed anything at all about it. I have also later on, as a grown-up, when I'm looking back at my childhood and see things through the lens of being an adult, realized how improper some of my parents' friends, that's what in their age, like 40, 50, were towards me, and how my parents didn't react at all for anything of it. For example, I had one friend that we used to meet up a lot with at this kind of dog events, and that they thought was so funny and stuff like that. And he, on several occasions, just come and pick me up by our camper, and took me away, and they didn't react. And I was like 5, 6, 7, something like that. And he could just take me away for an hour, 2 hours. They had no idea what he was doing. I have one memory of him taking me to a nearby market and started buying me gifts. I know I got a tea mug that I really liked the print on and stuff like that. And after I got that tea mug, every time I was around him, he always wanted to hold my hand. He wanted me to sit in his lap, things like that. That now for me as a mother myself, if someone grown up, he was like in his 50s, if someone grown up like that would do anything like that to my kids, I would react right away. I would be very, very like, what the hell do you think you're doing? There's no reason that my child should be in your lap every chance you got to have them. Because he was not a relative. He was just a friend. He was just someone that was around at dog competitions and stuff like that. But yeah, they didn't notice, or if they noticed, they didn't care. And I don't know if you have this term also in English, but we have a term in Swedish called key children. That the term is about children that from a very young age get the keys to their home and then are expected to go right home after school by their own and be able to get snack for themselves, start doing their homework by themselves, more or less fend for themselves for a couple of hours before the parents can get home from work. And we have childcare in Sweden that's really cheap, up to 6th grade. So after 6th grade, they are not... latchkids, yeah. So yeah. Okay, you have the same, yeah. But like here, it costs, I think in dollar, it's around like $100 a month to have a kid in childcare before school and after school up until they start 7th grade. And then after 7th grade, or when they start 7th grade, they are deemed old enough to be able to take care of themselves after school, but the school days are also longer. So most of the times they are not home until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon anyhow, so they don't need to be alone for that long. While even up to 6th grade, the school days often stop at the latest at 2 in the afternoon, and that give quite a lot of hours to be alone before a parent can go home from work, for most of the people. Yeah, and it's also cheaper for every kid you get. So you pay about $100 for the first kid, and then it's like $30 for each kid following the first kid. So we pay, quite exactly $100 for our youngest now to go to childcare. He eats breakfast there. So he gets to childcare, I think, around 7:15 in the morning, 7:30, and then school starts at 8, and then the school is out by 1, and then he's in childcare until around 4 when the father comes. So, yeah. And we pay this much because me and my husband's combined income is as high as it is. If you have lower income, it gets cheaper. And if you are not working at all or are studying, so you have a really low income, from the age of 3, you get 15 hours of free childcare a week for your child. or get. It's mandatory, because it's to help out with the kids learning language skills and stuff like that. But yeah. So yeah, there's some great things about Sweden. The childcare is one thing, the healthcare is another. But like I said, my parents, they didn't really notice stuff going on. I have one memory or one situation that really show how much they were focused on only their own stuff, and was when I was 11. We were at this dog competition, and my parents had left me alone in our caravan to go and do whatever they were doing with the dogs. And I had a friend that I was out playing with, and we were in where they had like a kind of a special kind of swing. And I accidentally fell from that swing and broke my collarbone. And when I did fall and I realized how much it hurt, I didn't understand I had broken my collarbone, but that was what had happened. So I went back to the caravan and asked my friend to try to go and find my parents. And my father came back to the caravan first, and my friend hadn't found him, so he had no idea what was happening. So he just found me crying in the caravan, and he got really, really mad when I said I had fallen and I had hurt my shoulder and something was wrong and I had so much pain. And just as we were leaving the caravan, because we were saying, okay, we need to go to the hospital then, my mom and my friend came. So my father started to yell to my mother that her unruly daughter had hurt herself, and that my mom need to take me to the emergency room. And then he stormed off. And my mom took me and my friend to the emergency room, got me checked in, and talked to a nurse a little bit of what had happened. And then after the doctor came and took a first check, he said that I needed to go and get an x-ray to make sure that if my collarbone was broken or if there was something else. And when my mom heard that, she just asked if that would take long. And he said, yeah, probably, because it was a bit of a line, and, most of the time you can't just get in there right away. So then my mom decided to give me and my friend a little bit of money to say, like, you can buy some candy and save a little bit of money to be able to call, because this was before cell phones, so we needed to call, use a phone box and call. So it was like, so written down numbers and just said, when everything is done, just call. So she left the number, and then she left us. So me and my friend was alone in the emergency room waiting for me to get into the x-ray, and then to meet with the doctor and get to know what was really wrong with me. And like I said, I was 11. And we were not at home. This was in another city. I had never been to this hospital. I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, my collarbone was broken. And when everything was done and I had got some kind of brace to have to fixate my shoulders a little bit, we called my mother and she come and get me. So yeah. How many of you would leave your 11-year-old alone, more or less alone, at the emergency room? But yeah. And this is perhaps a little bit of a glimpse into how my parents were, because they were both abusive, but in different ways. especially my mother, and she was a lot of abusive in this. What I've learned now is kind of typical narcissistic female way of being abusive. So she wasn't by herself really physically violent, but it was a lot of the mental stuff. So, for example, she liked to taunt me and make fun of me if I was sad or angry. And somewhere back in their home, I think there's still a recording, for example, of me when I am 3 years old crying over something. And she has recorded me crying. It's just the sound recording. It's not a video or anything, but just the sound of me crying. And then you can hear her voice saying stuff like, yeah, listen to Paula. She's so mad right now. Oh, poor Paula being this mad. Oh, no, 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 no. And then laughing and stuff like that. And her thing, because I guess part of this is also because my parents had been together for so long. They met when they were 15 and 16 and been together since that. My father was also very, or is still very codependent on my mother. So he did quite a lot what she told him to do. And that made it like when she deemed that her being verbally abusive didn't do enough damage, she would call in on my dad and he would be physically violent against me. But since this was the way I grew up, it took a long time for me to start to realize all the things they'd done that wasn't obviously wrong for me. Like, for example, for a very long time, I was thinking that I did nothing wrong because the physical violence wasn't actually hitting, but the thing my father had, like his go-to thing, it was to go right behind my ear and grab my hair. So go in with his hand really close to my skull or like right behind the ear, and then twist and lift. And when I say lift, I mean like really lift. There was occasion when he like lift me off on the floor in my hair that way. And like I said, for a long time I thought that was okay because it wasn't an actual blow of some kind or a spanking or something like that. And when they were talking in school, when I got a little bit older, and they talked about being violent against children and the fact that in Sweden it has been outlawed to use any kind of physical punishment since the 60s. So I was still thinking, somewhere that, okay, but it was very much explained to kids like you are not allowed to hit a child. But when I got a little bit older, like 12, 13, I started to understand that the law didn't actually said it wasn't allowed to hit a kid. It was like you are not allowed to hurt a kid in any way, shape or form. So you can't slap a kid or pull the hair or twist the ear or something like that. You are not allowed to do any kind of physical harm to a child, no matter if it's to how to say, to correct a behavior you're not allowed to do it, or so any kind of physical violence against a child is illegal here in Sweden. But like I said, it took a long time for me to understand that was wrong. It took even longer, like a lot longer, it's just like a few years ago that I realized that this was crazy behavior. but I thought it was okay. It was like probably like I was a very bad kid or something like that, and it was my mom's last resort to not use violence. And what she used to do was to push me outside on the balcony of what was by that time my mother and father's bedroom. Later it became my bedroom and they took a bigger one, but yeah. And that was a really small, like iron balcony with no way up and down. And it was not like you could see through the floor. It was like a net kind of thing there. So it was more like only to use to be able to open up when it was warm in the summer, or be able to put out the duvet a little bit or something like that. But she used to lock me out on that balcony. And she could do it even in the winter. I have a memory of sitting on that balcony in the winter with snow on the balcony, only dressed in an oversized shirt and underwear. For how long I was there, I have no idea. But she locked me out there, and then now and then she would open the door and then ask if I was being nice again. But that she always meant that I would say I'm sorry for whatever crime she had decided I had done, and that I wanted to hug and make up. And if I didn't want to hug and make up, or if I didn't want to, for example, confess to something I actually hadn't done, she would just close the door and leave me outside for another minute or 5 minutes or whatever it could have been. And yeah, all of that, to this day, one of my other coping mechanisms today is I like to document things. And this is also something that sparked my interest in true crime later on, to really dig into the evidence part of stuff, to see how things were documented, to follow the leads, because I had to... Hey, Tammy. Yeah, I hope that hospitals today would also call child services if an 11-year-old was left alone in the emergency room. But they didn't, at least nothing that I get to know of. We just went home, and maybe it was because we weren't from that town or something, and they were not sure to what child service I was supposed to call when we was outsiders, or how to say it. But yeah, like I said, I like to document things, because another thing that my mom is very much an expert in is gaslighting. So she could, and to this day, she can deny the things have happened that I know for a fact have happened, even stuff that she wasn't part of. For example, I was talking to my ex-husband about a thing that had happened for me in school, and my mom was listening. And she was not with me in school, but she still was adamant 100% that what I was telling my ex-husband had not happened. And I don't know why she absolutely didn't want that story to be true. Maybe she thought it was reflecting badly on her or something like that, but she was just denying it, straight up denying that what I said could be true, even though she wasn't there when these things happened. But of course, she is also denying anything she's done that make her look bad, even stuff she has done in front of other people that can say that, yeah, this actually happened, and she will still be like, nah, it didn't. But of course, she was also very good at punishing me or making me confess to things that didn't happen. If she wanted some kind of excuse to be mad at me. For example, she was home on sick leave and she was just certain that I would be coming home an hour earlier than I actually was supposed to get home. So when I got home at the right time, noted, she was so mad at me for being late. And she was mad at me for hours until my father in the end could convince her that I did actually get home on time. And that she had just mixed up the days and therefore thought that I should be home earlier than I was supposed to. And even then, she didn't want to take full responsibility for the situation. And tried to claim that I must have said the wrong day or something like that. So it was still kind of my fault. So yeah. One effect of the fact that I wasn't really safe at home and I wasn't safe at school and yeah, overall I didn't really have any safe place to be, was also that I was very much craving some kind of attention, pretty much any kind of attention that wasn't only to mock me or making me feel bad. So by the age of 12, I started to get groomed because by that time we had a computer at home with internet connection and we had a computer in school with internet connection. So I started to turn to internet and to chat forums and stuff like that to feel less alone. Pretty much like I do today. That part I think will never really leave me. Because all of this just makes me quite an awkward person when it comes to real life, actually being around other people. I'm much better at having contact and talk to people over the internet. But yeah. But like I said, I was around 12, 13, I started to get groomed and ended up in kind of child prostitution. And I continued to sell sexual services until I was 21. And I ended it all pretty much when I got pregnant with my first child. So his existence kind of became my way out of that part of the destruction of my life. Unfortunately, it was still his dad that I got pregnant with and that I came to be with for a little over 9 years. And we ended up to not have the best kind of relation. It was a very toxic relationship. And we still don't know. We can work together today because we have to for the kids and we haven't been together for 10 years now. So it's kind of okay-ish. But mainly because I have as little as possible to do with him today. And since my kids are starting to get so old, I can have even less to do with him, thankfully. But yeah, it took pretty much 10 years ago that I really ended the last part of the more like really destructive passages of my life. So yeah, but to the more maybe interesting, positive, still negative, but also positive parts of it all. And why I said it's hard even to start with when I was born and everything. Because like I said, my passport is still and will always be, because I don't have the energy to change it, that my birthday is the 25th of July 1986. But in reality, I was born 25th of June 1985. So I am actually 40 already and about to turn 41. But no one really needs to know that. Take care, Sarah. I hope the migraine will leave you soon. So, about 2 years ago, pretty much exactly 2 years ago, I actually got in contact with my biological mother. And I have, like, several years ago, I think it's like, but that time it was like 5 years earlier or something like that, I did a DNA test, just out of curiosity, because I was thinking that maybe I could find some biological relative that could know who my real or my birth mother was or something like that. But of course, I, for a long time, ended up with no matches of significance. Most of the matches was like, we were maybe from kind of the same village or something like that, but we weren't really relatives at all. Well, like I said, 2 years ago, I got a match with my biological mother, and she reached out to me on Facebook. She found me there, and we started to talk, and we have been talking since. And I'm going to show you what she sent me. I think this is the wrong one. Need to find something else here. Okay, let's do it like this. There we have it. Yay! So, Lina Maria Sarena is my mother. And this is a Facebook post that she did about me 12 years ago. So, like 10 years, 10 years before we actually got in contact with each other. And here she is asking if anyone knows anything about my whereabouts, and that I got got flown out of the country, which is Colombia, in 1988. But she didn't know like anything about. She only get to know that I had been adopted, but she didn't know by whom or to which country. They told her Europe, but she got different kind of information later on to which country I would be in. So she tried in several kinds of way to find me, without succeeding. And then she got in contact with a group that helped people that tried to search for children that had been adopted away through DNA tests, and they bought a test for her that she did, and that's the one that made us be able to find each other in the end. And when we got in contact and we could start talking with each other, and I of course asked why was I adopted away, she explained that she was very young when she got me, but she was only 15. And she moved from the small town where she had lived with her mother to Medellin to try to find work and to provide for me. And there she met a woman that said that I can take you in and you can get work with me, but you will have to leave Paula at this childcare place. She can't be with you at work. And she gave my mother an address to an older lady that was supposed to take care of me while my mother worked. And she was desperate, so she left me there and she went back to the other woman to work. And then she wasn't allowed to leave for almost a week. And when that week ended, she went back to the woman who was supposed to take care of me. And then that woman said that she thought that since my mother didn't come back for a week, that my mother didn't want me. So she had left me to an orphanage. And when my mother went to that orphanage and tried to talk to them, they said that this is up to the social services. And when she talked to the social, like child welfare protection services or something like that, they came up with different excuses to why she was not allowed to get me back. And at first it was that she needed to have job, and she got that a good job that she works on to this day. She works for the same family now as she did then. And they wanted to help her out as well with everything she needed when it comes to money and stuff like that to be able to get me back. And then the services said, yeah, you can't get her back until you have an own bedroom for your daughter. She can't sleep in the same room as you do. She needs to have an own room. And she got an apartment with 2 bedrooms, and she showed and said, look at this, and now I have a bedroom. And then they changed and said, yeah, but then you need this and this and this and that. And when she was 18, turned 18 and I was 3, she had just gotten my little sister. And she went back once again and said, hey, I'm 18 now, because then the last thing they said was that you need to turn 18. We can't leave her with you until you are a grown-up, like 18. So she went back when she was 18, just like more or less on her birthday. And when she came back again, and now reached the last kind of demand, they just told her that it has taken too long. I was not available anymore. I had been adopted away, and she was not allowed to know any facts about my whereabouts. And the workplace she had working for a family was like in the same area as the orphanage that I had been staying at. So for like the last year before I got adopted away, she went by that orphanage every day and tried to see me and talk to me and make sure we still had contact. But she wasn't allowed to see me that often. And after they adopted me away, she still went by that orphanage more or less every day. And she went there several times trying to get information of where I had taken me or what country I had ended up in, and tried to see if she could write me a letter, if she could later on when internet became a thing, she was trying to get them to let me speak to her through a webcam, or just, try to find out anything about me and making sure I was okay. But they just said, no. And for my part in Sweden, because of the situation I had with my parents and with abuse I endured at home, one of the reasons I wanted to check for my roots was to see somehow if I was unwanted there as well, or how to put it. And I actually, long before I did the DNA test, I tried to reach out through the adoption agency in Sweden and get any information and see if she had left me a letter or if there was some kind of way to contact her and get to know anything more. And the Swedish agency just said no, and that I shouldn't look too much for her because she was probably very young when she got me, which was true, but still. And that I could ruin her current life by showing up. They tried to say that she was probably very ashamed of having me at that young of age, maybe outside of the marriage and stuff like that, and that I would embarrass her or ruin her life if I showed up or tried to contact her. So they wouldn't give me any kind of information at all. We had a TV show called Without a Trace. I think other countries had some kind of thing, something similar. That was just about finding the biological parents for adopted children. And I was thinking about applying to that show, but I was too young to do it because I needed to be 18 to do it without my parents' consent, and they didn't consent. And I later get to know through other friends that was also, I have that also adopted, that they had actually tried to search and get to know by then that the show couldn't help them because they had too little information. So, yeah. But like I said, I get in contact with my biological mother, and that way could come to realize that I was actually stolen as a child, and that the adoption was not correctly done, and that this was nothing about she wanting to do the best for me, or that she didn't want me, or that she thought that I would have it better somewhere else. She never got a choice in this. And she have always wanted me and always looked for me. But the same year, so like 1.5 years ago, we actually went to Colombia, me and my husband, and met with her and all of my Colombian family. Let's take this away. So this is from when we get to Colombia. This reel is my heritage in Sweden that I've done since it was my heritage that we used to get the DNA connection. And they asked if they could show this or share our story in their social media for more people to see, and we said okay. So this is them telling on how it was for me and the story behind it all. And as you can see, I had a lot of short, maybe a bit better hair before I started to grow it out. Yeah. So yeah, that was my story in short, very superficial. I don't want to overwhelm with too much details, but yeah, I think you can understand my interest in true crime and in especially the investigation part of it all. from my history and everything around it. And the funny thing is, I was very critical to international adoption long before I found out the real story by my own. And of course, one part of me being critical was from always meeting people telling me how lucky I been to be adopted, how grateful I must be, how fantastic my life must be, how good it must be to know I am so wanted because my parents went out of their way to get me, to adopt me. While all of that time knowing what was happening behind closed doors. So that was one part for me being critical. Another part was the fact that I tried to reach out and wasn't able to get the information that I wanted or needed. That I felt that something wasn't quite right, that if the adoption had gone the way it should, then why was the adoption services so secretive around my adoption and who I was and where I was from and so on, and so careful about me being able to find my mother. Yeah. So somehow I did have kind of a hunch that maybe my adoption hadn't been ethical and legal. And then when I found my mother, I actually found out that it was true. But it was actually a little bit of a strange part when we started to talk, and she was in this group that was so critical to international adoption, and who are driving opinion in Colombia about bringing justice to all mothers who got their children stolen, or families that got children stolen for adoption. And then me being able to show articles I had made several years ago about adoption, the adoption industry having a dark side to it, and the corruption, and the fact that children could be ending up in adoption in unethical and illegal ways. So even though I had no clue about my own background and she had no clue about what had happened to me, we still worked in kind of similar ways to criticize international adoptions to Sweden or in the world, and the wrongdoings in it. And that's not to say that all adoptions are bad and stuff like that, but the bad parts about specifically international adoptions has not been dealt with in the proper way, especially not in Sweden. So, yeah. And I would say that that's the end of the true crime part of today's live. Hey, Binska. Hey. I think I said hey today to you, Tammy, before. Well, hello, everyone. How are you? Yeah, thank you for listening to me rambling. Mm. Now I may be able to actually do some crocheting too, not only jumping. How do you think it works with this computer setup with the sound and me being able to change um, screen is what I was looking for. Video and stuff like that. I can only see it from my part. I have no idea if it looks good for you. Great, great. I just realized I have the wrong. Let's see here, live chat. So, are you still thinking about moving to Sweden now, Binska? There are a few houses for sale where I live. I'm just putting it out there. Um, Next week, I will probably start the live a little bit later, since I'm going to some stand-up comedy on the evening, and I'm not sure when I'll be on the hotel room. And I will be living with my cell phone again. But after that, maybe I will be back doing another live this way with camera or the full computer setup. Yeah. I would say wait after to after the Swedish elections. We have the elections in September, and in Sweden we always have the election on a Sunday. By the way, just to maximize that as many people as possible will be able to go and vote on the actual voting day. Um, and those who still end up working on that Sunday, they have like, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks before the voting day to go and pre-vote if they want to. And here you don't have to register to vote. Everyone over the age of 18 automatically get a voting card home in the mailbox to go and vote. And if you forget your voting card, you can go and vote anyway, as long as you bring your ID card instead. Yeah. We, we also have quite a high turn up. So the lowest I think we've been down to was like, let me see, I think it was like 86% or something like that turned out to vote. Let's see here. Yeah, like the lowest we have ever gone is in like recent times is around 84, 86%, something like that. And the highest it's been up to, I think, was like 92% or something like that, 94, before it went down a little bit. And now it's around 88% of everyone that's allowed to vote actually turn out to vote. So, and yeah, and the fact that we don't have to register and that the voting is always on a Sunday, it helps for the turnout. And when it comes to the EU elections, we have still quite a high turnout, but it's deemed like a real big issue that the turnout is so low compared to when we have the state elections. Because for the EU elections, we have a turnout at around 60%, 65% they go to vote, and the rest don't bother. But because that's so much lower than when we have the elections for our states, it's like a big deal. And a lot of discussion on how to get more people to go to the EU elections. But we have 3 elections when we have the state election. It's for the government for whole of the country. And then in every county, we have a county like mini government that you also vote for. And then the counties is put into like bigger regions. And those regions has also their own like smaller government. So if you say like the county government, they take care of stuff like childcare, elderly care, local roads, local bus and train traffic, schools, and a lot of stuff like that, like local things. And then the region, that's like one step up, they take care of the roads going between the different counties. They take care of the buses going between the different counties and stuff like that. And they also have the main ruling of all the healthcare systems. So, for example, for me, I live in a county that's called Ljungby, and Ljungby is in a region called Kronoberg, and then Kronoberg is in Sweden. But the place where I work is in the county of Värnamo. That's in the region of Jönköping. So, if I, for example, if I need healthcare that is not an emergency, I will be asked to, if possible, search for healthcare in Kronoberg, and just in special circumstances, search for healthcare anywhere else. If there's some kind of emergency, it doesn't matter, then they will go to the nearest hospital, and then I maybe get moved if need be, but then they don't look at that. But if there's something like I need to do a checkup on my asthma, well, then I will do that checkup in the main hospital of Växjö, not in the main hospital in Jönköping. And stuff like that. So we have an election for all 3 of these instances of. My dog is dreaming. 1 second. So yeah. But like I said, when it comes to deciding whether to move to Sweden or not, it's best to wait to after the election we have in September, because one of the biggest parties in Sweden by now are a party that is very much inspired by Trump. They were founded by neo-Nazis, and they are not very fond of any kind of immigrations. So yeah. So in case they win and become the biggest party and the one that will be ruling the government and have a lot of power, I don't think that Sweden maybe will be so good to move to after all. Oh wow, that's a lot of things to vote on. Yeah. I have this tattoo. Let's see if I can find a picture. Wait one second. Flaggan. Let's see if I can find picture. Okay, here we go. This is, I can take this one. Come on. So, this is a very famous Swedish painting or artwork that the words on it is, I don't know how to say this is in English. Ravish the flag. Defy weapons. Don't go to war, etc. And then in the middle of the Swedish flag is the word dick. Okay, and I just need to show this because I have on my arm, let's see, there we go. Down here, it's kind of a rip-off on this famous Swedish artwork. So you can see the flames are the same over here, but instead of the flag, it's a t-shirt. And it says to demand new election. I don't really know the name for this. New election, change government, let Ulf down, where Ulf is our prime minister right now, Ulf Kristersson. And then on the flag is or on the t-shirt is said, we hate all of the right wings. And this is ironical, but it's just because of the fact that when I did this tattoo, Ulf Kristersson, that is the party leader of what was until then the biggest right-wing party, he is, first of all, he's the one that was in charge of the adoptions agency that I was adopted from. I think he wasn't the main leader of them by the time I was adopted, but like 2 or 3 years later he became that. And before that he was still in like their top team, and had a lot to do with Swedish adoptions in the late 80s, early 90s. And he himself has 2 daughters adopted from China. But he had also promised that to a woman named Heidi Fried, that was a genocide survivor from the Holocaust, that he promised her that he would never work with the Swedish Democrats, or Sweden Democrats, the party that is now the biggest party on the right wing. And he promised her that after she said that the way they spoke about not only mainly Muslims, but immigration in general and people that are not like them, she was very clear that that's the way it started in Germany, and that she saw the warning signs and therefore made him promise to never work with them because they were dangerous. And still after the last election, he went and worked with them together with all the other parties on the right wing except for one. And that's when I decided to do this tattoo and say that I hate them all. I do not hate everyone that's more of a libertarian than I am or more right-wing than I am. Of course not. But as a statement, because of the situation when I did the tattoo, it stands. So, yeah. And I really, really hope that they don't win the election in September, because I think it will end up really, really bad for us in Sweden and for people like me that isn't white, especially. And the Sweden Democrats is very after it was just recently voting in the EU government that the side one that wanted to have raids on immigrants in EU. And after that election, the official Sweden Democrats in the European Parliament on Twitter went out with a meme. Let's see if I can find it. It says like, "Thank you, Trump, for your support. A new era of exportations." No, not exportation. What's the word? Of deportations is starting in the EU or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. And the Sweden Democrats also said that they wish for Sweden to adopt and kind of get to have like raids like in America or in USA, like that they want to make sure that we should get some kind of our own ICE, more or less. So let's see here.
Europe is where you are now. Do you think that will move the needle with Democrats?
Let's see if we can
I don't
make
care about
this.
the Democrats. The Democrats hate our country.
European European Parliament just passed a major deportation plan. Some of the tenets of it are that member states can deport rejected asylum seekers to third countries regardless of whether they have a connection to it. It allows for detention periods of up to 2 years and also
See if I
offshore
can make
return hubs or
this
detention centers.
a
Similar to
little
ours.
bigger
did
for
this? Who
you
does-
to
which
actually
Parliament, the
see.
vote was not close. It was 389 in
Good.
favor to 208 against.
I'd vote.
So
I'd vote with them. Yeah.
Europe is where you are now. Do you think that will move the needle with Democrats?
I don't care about the Democrats. The Democrats hate our country.
European Parliament just passed a major deportation plan. Some of the tenets of it are that member states can deport rejected asylum seekers to third countries
Okay, that was
regardless
not
of
that
whether
good,
they have a
but-
connection to it. It allows for detention periods of up to 2 years and also offshore.
Whatever. Hello. There we are.
Where you
When I
are
said this
now,
is the
do you
Swedish
think that
Democrats,
will
and
move the
they
needle
was
with
and they are like,
I
yay,
don't care about
thank
the
you,
Democrats.
Mr. Trump.
The Democrats hate our country.
European Parliament just passed a major deportation
for
plan. Some of the tenets
your
of it
support.
are that member states can deport rejected
A new era of
asylum
deportation is
seekers to
starting in
third
Europe,
countries
and that
regardless
they
of
put
whether
out
they
on
have a
X.
connection to it. It
So,
allows for detention periods of up to 2 years.
yeah. I think we need a ducky micronation. Didn't you make a... We need that that flag and things that we were talking about in some live before, I think. Canada has always been one of those countries, Haley, that I thought that I would actually enjoy, because there are actually a lot of things in Canada that is similar to the way it works here in Sweden. So I don't think it would be as much of an change to move there. Maybe. At least that's the way it feels, but I can be completely wrong. I have a new design on crochet hook from the 3D printer now, but that's not with an interchangeable hook, it's just one hook size. And it turned out quite well, I think. And as you can see, this is a 4mm hook. I know it's... So, yeah. One of my cousins, he did 1 year of university in Canada in an exchange program. And I think he liked it a lot. I have never been for real to North America. I have just been, when we went to Colombia on our way back home, we had to change planes in Miami, and that's the most I have been in North America. So yeah, and that's not that much. And Ireland, I have been to once when I was working in one of the Irish elections for Clare Daly. That was fun. That would be so fun, Haley. And hey, if anyone wants to come and visit Sweden, we have a spare bedroom. We have big sofas to sleep on if the beds would become full. And we are about 5 hours away from Stockholm, which is the capital of Sweden. And we have 2 hours to both Gothenburg and Malmö. That's the second and third biggest city of Sweden. Well, with Stockholm, of course, being the biggest one. So we live in kind of a good place for if you want to go visit the bigger cities, but not actually stay in the bigger cities. And we have 5 hotels close by. if one would rather stay at hotel. So yeah, it's quite nice over here, at least as a tourist. Have you ever heard of John Bauer? He was a Swedish painter that lived quite close to where I live now. It's like the area. And he was very famous for his troll pictures. Let's see if I can find one. We can take this. This is one that's really, really famous of John Bauer's.
Tenets of it are that member states can deport rejected asylum seekers to third countries regardless of whether they have.
Okay, this one is a very well-known John Bauer kind of picture. So that's that kind of troll and face and etc. that he was very Haley, if you want to do a blind box exchange, let me know. I can take some of those extra items from your hands. Yeah. I have accidentally done that on Temu sometimes. Not double checked the amount and accidentally bought 2 or 3 of the same item that I wasn't supposed to buy 2 or 3 from. Ooh, Seattle. That's actually one city I really want to visit sometime. It would be so cool. I think we need to start to arrange some kind of ducky meetups. Start locally, like the Nordic meetup, and then there can be like Northern Europe meetup, and and try to end up with some kind of world ducky meetup. Yeah. DuckyCon, exactly. Yeah, the reason I accidentally bought from Temu more than I was supposed to, I think, is I accidentally clicked in on some kind of campaign. And then when I exit that campaign, I didn't see that the items had been added to my cart. And therefore added to the items I already had there and stuff like that. It's just idiotic, but yeah. It's a smart way to make people buy things by mistake, I guess. So, What did you think of my new stylus designs, by the way? I actually think these are quite cute. And they work very well. The only bad part is that I need to decide which one I'm actually going to either put in my Lucky Scoops or sell, or if I'm going to keep anyone for myself. That's cool, Haley. I was thinking about that, Haley, if we do a box exchange instead, I can make sure to send your beading to for you in that exchange. That would actually be quite good, but because then we don't have to hassle with you being able to pay me for the postage for stuff. That maybe could work for you. Let me know you can DM me in Discord if that would work for you. Oh. Oh. Sorry. Oh, I almost forgot. I was going to make myself some new earrings today because I feel like I need it. So I think this. Yay, that's good, Haley. Let me know next time you get too sad and I will start a live only for you. Let's see if I can do like this. Maybe you can see a little bit better. I'm trying to find my box with earrings. I'm making earrings with. There it was. The only bad part with it being like all clear, it has a tendency to disappear for me. I can't always find them when I want. Okay, let's see. What do you think about my t-shirt on? Yeah. Thank you for checking in, Bingska. Hope to see you soon again. I'm only going to make myself these earrings and then I am actually also off to bed, and I think Amy should be back on quite soon also. I just need to figure out what kind of earrings I actually want to do today. Should I do tiny diners? Should I do bread? Should I do another pair of Kirby? not Kirby. I have Kirby already. Yeah. It's a perfect homebody kind of shirt whenever I really feel like today is a day that I'm not going to interact with anyone if I'm not forced to. Then this is my go-to shirt to really get the message across. Okay. I don't know what my computer decided to do with the camera color, but that was something, I guess. Looking forward to that, Haley. You can never get too much pictures of floofs. I'm also curious, Haley, where do you get a robotic dog? I think they are super cute and so cool. Okay. I'm on glue hunt. Where did I hide the glue? Oh well. Cool. You seem to have nice parents. I think all kind of animals is really the best things in life. And I think I would like a robotic cat because I really love cats, but I am too allergic to have one. I used to have cat before the allergy got too bad, but I haven't had a cat for several years now because I get too allergic. And that really sucks. Ah. Vad händer? What's going on? Okej, nu ska vi se. Just out of curiosity, because Swedish sounds like, of course, normal to me. But what does Swedish sound like for people who don't understand it? That's I'm just a little bit curious about. Does it actually sounds a bit like when Swedish chefs in the Muppets are talking? Or something like that. I don't remember how long I try when I have a... That's cool. Oh, you do, Hela. That's cool. I do not. I have colleagues that talk Bosnian and Serbian, and they talk about, say that those languages are very similar. So they understand each other really well, even though they are talking two different languages. So yeah. But I talk Swedish and, of course, English. And I do know a little bit of German, but my husband is much, much better at talking German than I am. And I am working on my Spanish to be able to talk better with my mother and my family. But it's hard. It's so hard to try to learn a new language as a grown-up. I can't recommend it at all. Or maybe it's just me that is not that good at languages. I know some people are like incredible in learning different languages, but that really isn't me, I think. At least it doesn't feel like I understand anything. Damn it. Okay. There we go. I made hard to see, but there we go. Kind of stud earrings, a little bit of a glittery bow, and then black Hello Kitty. But they will probably not be really dry until tomorrow. So, well, since my swimming workouts on Sundays have changed time and it started an hour earlier than it used to, and all the way until summer, I actually need to get to bed, so I managed to get up in time tomorrow morning. But I am very thankful for everyone who checked in today. And I hope to see you again soon enough. Or see you at Discord in the chat, of course. Take care for now, and